Snow fell over Seoul like soft piano notes, each flake landing with the hush of something sacred. The city glowed beneath the street lamps, pale golds, muted silvers, a symphony of stillness. Inside St. Mary's Hospital, everything was quieter still. Machines hummed like distant violins, and the only sound in room 407 was the steady rhythm of a heart that refused to stop beating. Kang Jae-min lay on the bed, his body fragile beneath the white sheets. Once his name had filled concert halls. Once his fingers had made grand pianos weep and audiences hold their breath. But now his hands were still. The world that had adored him went on spinning without him. He had been in a coma for 14 days. When his eyelids fluttered open at last, the nurse gasped, "Doctor, he's awake." The attending physician, a calm man with kind eyes, leaned over him. "Mr. Kang, can you hear me?" Jamin blinked slowly. His lips moved, but no words came out. The doctor smiled gently. "You've been in an accident. You're safe now." An accident. The word echoed through his empty mind like a dropped stone in an endless well. He searched his thoughts for something, a face, a name, a sound, but there was only silence. The following days blurred together in white walls and antiseptic light. The doctors called it partial retrograde amnesia. They said his memory might return in fragments, or it might never come back at all. They told him he used to be a pianist. They showed him videos of himself performing in tuxedos, surrounded by orchestras, cameras flashing like lightning. He watched the clips in confusion, wondering how that confident, smiling man could possibly be him. The face on the screen felt like a stranger. On the third morning, the head nurse entered with a new visitor. "Mr. Kang," she said, "this is Amara. She'll be helping with your music therapy." Amara stepped forward, a young Nigerian woman with warm brown skin and intelligent eyes that held both kindness and strength. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun, and a small silver cross hung at her throat. She bowed slightly. "Annyeonghaseyo, Kang Jae-min SSI. It's an honor to meet you." He studied her, saying nothing. "I'll be working with you 3 times a week," she continued softly. "My goal is to help stimulate your memory through music. I know it might feel strange at first, but sometimes melodies can awaken what words cannot." He nodded faintly, his gaze distant. Amara looked around the sterile room, her eyes landing on the grand piano pushed against the far wall, a gift from his label, unused since the accident. She walked over, trailing her fingers gently along its lid, as though greeting an old friend. "Do you mind?" she asked. He didn't answer. She lifted the cover and pressed a single note. The sound lingered, trembling in the cold air like a breath that had been waiting to be released. For a moment, Jamin's expression flickered, a flash of something buried deep. Then he turned his face away. Amara sat quietly on the piano bench. "It's okay," she said. "We don't have to rush. Sometimes silence is part of the music too." Later that afternoon, when she returned with his lunch, she found him sitting at the piano. His back was straight, his fingers hovering over the keys. But when he pressed down, the notes came out uneven, hesitant, uncertain. He played a few chords, stopped, then played again, frowning. "I used to know this song," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. "But I can't remember who it was for." Amara froze in the doorway. There was something heartbreaking in his tone, not just frustration, but grief. "What's it called?" she asked quietly. He stared at the sheet of music in front of him. The pages were wrinkled, edges torn, as if they'd been carried through fire and rain. The title read, **, Whispers of Winter. **. The composer's name, elegantly printed at the top, was Kang Jae-min. He touched the title with trembling fingers. "Did I write this?" "Yes," Amara said softly. "It's yours." He let out a bitter laugh. "Then why can't I hear it in my head? It's like knowing a word exists but forgetting its sound." Amara stepped closer. "Maybe the music is waiting for you to find it again." He looked at her, really looked this time. Her voice carried a strange calm, a melody of its own. Something about her accent, the soft rhythm of her English-Korean blend, soothed him. He didn't know why, but he trusted her. "Do you play?" he asked. "A little," she said with a shy smile. "My father used to fix old keyboards and Legos. I learned by watching him. Nothing fancy." "Show me." She hesitated, then sat beside him on the bench. Her fingers brushed the keys gently, playing a simple tune, a Nigerian lullaby, soft and circular. The melody was humble but filled with warmth, like sunlight spilling through curtains. Jamin closed his eyes. Something stirred inside him, a flicker of memory, a woman's laugh, the faint smell of jasmine. It slipped away before he could catch it. When Amara finished, she smiled. "Your turn." He shook his head. "I don't even remember how to hold a song anymore." "That's okay," she said. "We'll start with one note at a time." Over the next few days, Amara visited often. She brought music sheets, recordings, and sometimes small snacks, tekbaki, gimbap, even puff-puff she'd made herself. She spoke about her home, about learning Korean, about believing that every person has a rhythm that can heal them. Jamin listened quietly, his eyes often drifting toward the piano. One evening, as snow drifted past the window, she asked, "What do you feel when you look at it?" He frowned thoughtfully. "It's strange. I feel like it knows something I don't." "Maybe it does," she teased softly. "Maybe it's waiting for you to listen." He laughed for the first time, a quiet, uncertain sound, but real. "You talk like music is alive." "It is," she said. "It's memory in disguise." That night, when she left, she glanced back through the glass door. He was sitting at the piano again, fingers resting on the keys, lost in thought. He pressed one note, just one, and held it until it faded into silence. Amara smiled faintly. Something had shifted in him that day, something fragile but alive. In the stillness of that hospital room, the world's noise faded away. There were no cameras, no crowds, no applause. Just a man who had forgotten who he was, and a woman who believed she could remind him. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and endless, like a whisper waiting to be heard. And on the piano, the crumpled sheet of music glowed beneath the dim light, its title still clear. Morning sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds, painting golden stripes across the piano keys. The faint hum of Seoul's traffic floated in from outside, the sound of life moving on, indifferent to those still learning how to begin again. Jamin sat by the window, a wool blanket over his lap, staring at his reflection in the glass. He had spent an hour studying his own face, tracing every unfamiliar detail, the small scar near his temple, the tired eyes, the faint crease above his brow. He could play notes now, scales even, but none of them felt like him. They were echoes from someone else's past. When Amara entered, carrying a tray of breakfast and her ever-present gentle smile, he turned toward her with a small nod. "Good morning," she said softly. He hesitated, as if testing the phrase. "Good morning." His voice was steadier than before. Amara smiled wider. "That's progress." She set the tray on the bedside table and noticed a small pile of papers scattered across his blanket, his old music sheets, marked with faint pencil notes and erased signatures. Among them was something she hadn't seen before, a photograph, tucked between two pages. It had probably fallen out by accident. She picked it up. The photo was slightly faded, taken near what looked like a frozen lake. Jamin was in it, younger, smiling, his arm around a woman with long black hair and eyes full of quiet light. She wore a white winter coat, her hand resting over his heart. Amara's chest tightened. Whoever she was, the bond between them was undeniable. "Do you know her?" she asked. Jamin looked at the photograph as though seeing it for the first time. His brows furrowed. "I don't know," he whispered. "But when I look at her, I feel something." "What do you feel?" He closed his eyes, searching the silence. "Sadness. Like missing someone you can't name." Amara held the photo for a moment before setting it back on the bed. "Maybe she's someone who loved your music." He gave a soft, bitter smile. "Maybe she's the reason I can't play it anymore." That evening, after her shift, Amara sat in the university library, the photograph burned into her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about that woman's eyes, the way they seemed to hold secrets only the snow could understand. Curiosity gnawed at her. Carefully, she typed into the search bar, Kong Jaemin pianist Seoul. Hundreds of results appeared, concert posters, magazine interviews, award photos. He'd been famous. But one headline caught her attention immediately. Tragic loss for music world. Pianist Kang Jaemin's fiancé dies in car crash. The article was dated 2 years ago. Amara's hands trembled as she clicked. The report detailed the accident. A wet winter night, a speeding truck, a collision on the Han River Bridge. Jaemin had survived but suffered severe head trauma. His fiancée, Seo Yoona, had died instantly. There was even a photo of her. The same woman from the picture. Amara felt a lump rise in her throat. She scrolled further down, reading every word. They had met at a conservatory recital. She had been a violinist. They were engaged to perform a duet at their wedding, a song Jaemin had written for her. The title froze Amara's breath. Whispers of Winter. Her heart ached. The song he couldn't remember had been a love letter. She closed the laptop slowly, her eyes stinging. How do you tell someone their music was born from loss? The next day, Jaemin seemed restless. He sat at the piano longer than usual, playing fragments of melodies that never resolved. Something's missing, he said quietly. Every time I play, I feel like someone's supposed to join in, like a second voice. Amara stood behind him, her hands clasped. Maybe it's a duet. He nodded absently. Yes. A duet. He frowned, pressing a hand to his head. And she was... The thought slipped away, like mist between his fingers. Amara stepped forward. It's okay. Don't force it. He looked up at her. I dream about snow, he said. Always snow. There's music and someone's laughing. Then there's a light. Then nothing. Amara swallowed hard. She wanted to tell him the truth, to free him from that blank, haunted space. But how could she? He was fragile, piecing himself together note by note. And yet, part of her didn't want him to remember. Because every time he smiled at her, every time he said her name softly, Amare, she felt something blooming inside her. Something that shouldn't. That night, she stayed late after his therapy session. He had fallen asleep in the chair by the piano, the faintest hint of a smile still on his face. The moonlight cast silver stripes across his skin, making him look like something carved from porcelain and sorrow. Amara gently covered him with his blanket. Then, without thinking, she sat at the piano and played. It was Whispers of Winter. The notes came slowly at first, uncertain, but as she played, the melody found her, soft, haunting, full of longing. It wasn't just a song, it was a conversation between love and loss. As the final note faded, she looked at him again. His eyes were open, glistening in the dark. You know that song, he whispered. She froze. I just found the sheet here and thought. He shook his head gently. No, I've heard it before. In a dream. Her throat tightened. Maybe your memory is coming back. He smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe the music's trying to remind me of something, someone. Their eyes held, long enough for Amara to feel something dangerous in her chest. Later, alone in her dorm room, she couldn't sleep. The snowfall outside matched the rhythm of her thoughts, slow, endless, beautiful, but heavy. She took out her phone, looked again at the article and whispered, Seo Yoona, what would you want me to do? If she told him the truth, he might remember his fiancée and lose the fragile piece he was rebuilding. But if she stayed silent, he might fall in love with her instead. And that, she realized, might break him even more. Back in the hospital, Jaemin stirred in his sleep. His fingers moved unconsciously on the blanket, as if playing invisible keys. His lips parted slightly, forming a name he couldn't hear. Yoona. A tear slipped down his cheek. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, endless, merciless. And somewhere between the drifting flakes and the unspoken words, whispers of winter echoed faintly once more. The snow had stopped falling, but the world still felt hushed, as though Seoul itself were holding its breath. Inside Jaemin's apartment, the fireplace crackled softly. The hospital had discharged him 2 weeks ago, declaring his recovery stable. Stable. That word meant little to a man who couldn't remember his own past. His spacious home felt like a museum of someone else's life, walls filled with portraits of him at concerts, awards gleaming on glass shelves, a grand piano that looked both familiar and foreign. He moved through it all like a stranger. Amara visited every day after her classes. The music therapy sessions had officially ended, but she continued to help him adjust. The truth was she couldn't stay away. Something about him, his quietness, his fragile grace, had rooted itself deep inside her. And perhaps, though she wouldn't admit it, he didn't want her to leave either. That afternoon, Amara found him sitting at the piano again. The soft winter light spilled across the room, painting golden reflections on the polished wood. Jaemin's fingers rested on the keys, but no sound came out. "You look like you're thinking too much," she teased gently, setting down a small bag of groceries she'd brought. "Music doesn't come when you frown at it." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's why it's been silent for so long." She moved closer, standing beside him. "Maybe it's waiting for you to stop thinking and just feel." He looked up at her. "And what if what I feel is emptiness?" "Then play that," she said softly. "Even emptiness has a sound." He watched her for a moment, then placed his hands on the piano. The first few notes were uneven, trembling, but slowly, they began to take shape, a quiet melody that filled the air like a breath returning to life. Amara closed her eyes, listening. There was sorrow in the music, but also tenderness, a love reaching out from somewhere beyond memory. When he stopped, she said, "That was beautiful." He exhaled shakily. "It felt like remembering, but not with my mind, with something deeper." Later that evening, Amara helped him prepare dinner. The way he tried to follow her cooking instructions made her laugh. He nearly burned the kimchi stew twice and mistook sugar for salt. "Yeah," she exclaimed, laughing. "That's not sugar. That's... oh no, don't taste." He grimaced instantly, grabbing his water glass. "Definitely not sugar," he coughed, and they both burst into laughter. It was the first time she had seen him truly laugh, not the polite smile of a man trying to seem fine, but a genuine, open sound. When their laughter faded, a comfortable silence settled between them. Jaemin looked at her and said quietly, "When you laugh, it feels like home." Her heart skipped. "You shouldn't say things like that, Kong Jaemin," she murmured, looking away. "Why not?" "Because you might mean it," she said. "And you're still trying to remember who you used to love." He didn't reply, but the way his eyes softened made her chest tighten. That night, after dinner, Amara sat on the couch while Jaemin played. The melody was Whispers of Winter. He had found the sheet earlier that day and decided to try it again. His fingers moved more confidently this time, guided by something instinctive. The haunting tune filled the room, sorrowful yet delicate, like snowflakes that melt before they touch the ground. Halfway through the song, his fingers stopped abruptly. His breathing quickened. "Are you okay?" Amara asked, rising quickly. He pressed his palm to his head. "I saw something," he whispered, "just now while I played." "What did you see?" He stared at the keys, his eyes unfocused. A woman, standing by a frozen lake. She was smiling. Amara froze, her throat tightening. He looked up at her. "And I was playing this song for her." Her heart pounded painfully. "Did you remember her name?" He shook his head. "No. But I remember how she looked at me, like I was her favorite song." Tears burned behind Amara's eyes, but she blinked them back. "That's good, Jaemin. It means your memory's coming back." He nodded slowly, then reached for her hand. "But when I look at you, I feel the same thing. That can't be right, can it?" She froze, staring down at their intertwined fingers. "You're confusing gratitude for something else," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, it's not gratitude." His voice was low, trembling. "It's something deeper." Something I thought I'd never feel again. Her heart twisted. Jamin, please don't. He stood suddenly, his chair scraping back. Every time I hear your voice, every time I see your face, I feel music again. How can that be wrong? Because your heart remembers someone else, she whispered. The room fell silent except for the crackling of the fire. Jamin's expression faltered. You think I'm still hers? I think you're still lost, Amara said softly. And I'm afraid if you find your way back, you'll forget me. Her words hung between them like smoke. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath. Maybe I don't want to find my way back. Before she could respond, he pressed his lips to hers, soft, hesitant, trembling with confusion and longing. For a heartbeat, she didn't pull away. The warmth of him, the quiet desperation, felt like both a question and an apology. Then she broke the kiss, stepping back, tears glistening in her eyes. You don't know what you're doing, she whispered. He looked shattered. I know exactly what I'm doing. But she shook her head. No, Jamin. You're remembering through me. And when your memories return, you'll realize this isn't love. It's loneliness wearing music's disguise. She grabbed her coat and left, the door closing softly behind her. Hours later, Jamin sat alone in the dark, the piano still open before him. His fingers brushed the keys, but no sound came. His mind pulsed with flashes, a woman's laughter, falling snow, the faint scent of jasmine. And then, for the first time since the accident, the melody of whispers of winter flowed perfectly through his hands, not broken, not lost. Whole. Each note carried pieces of a memory returning to life. When he reached the final chord, tears streamed down his face. He whispered her name for the first time in 2 years, a name that came unbidden but right. Yuna. The music faded into silence. And in that silence, he realized what Amara had feared all along. The song he had played for her was never truly hers. It had always belonged to another. Morning light crept through the curtains like reluctant truth. Jamin sat at his piano, fingers trembling over the keys, still hearing the echo of the name that had returned to him in the night. Yuna. It felt both foreign and familiar, like a half-remembered melody. He didn't know her face clearly, but the sound of her name made his heart ache, a ghost of love reborn through music. Across the city, Amara lay awake in her tiny dorm room. The kiss, his words, his song, they played in her mind on repeat. She wanted to forget, but she couldn't. Every heartbeat carried his voice, and every heartbeat reminded her of the truth she'd been hiding. Later that day, Amara stood in front of the apartment door for several minutes before she knocked. She didn't want to see the look in his eyes when he remembered, but she couldn't run forever. When the door opened, Jamin looked different, not just tired, but distant, as if part of him had drifted away in the night. You came back, he said quietly. I had to, she murmured, stepping inside. You remembered something, didn't you? He nodded. A name. Yuna. He said it like a confession. Do you know her? Amara's throat tightened. Yes. He frowned slightly. Who is she? Amara's eyes filled with tears. She was your fiancé. The silence that followed was unbearable. He stared at her as if the word itself hurt. Fiancé. Amara nodded slowly. You were in love with her.
Deeply.
You wrote Whispers of Winter for her. His breath caught, and he gripped the edge of the piano for balance. Then, where is she? Amara hesitated, her voice trembling. She died, Jamin. The night of the accident. He sat down heavily, his face pale. She died? Amara nodded again, fighting to hold her tears. You were driving. It was snowing hard. You lost control near Namsan Bridge. She didn't survive. His hands went cold. Fragments of memory flashed. Laughter in the car, Yuna's hand on his arm, headlights, snow, the sound of shattering glass. He buried his face in his palms, his shoulders shaking. Amara wanted to comfort him, to reach out, but she couldn't. Not after everything she'd let him believe. After a long silence, he whispered, Why didn't you tell me? Amara's voice broke. Because you looked so lost. And I thought maybe forgetting was the only way you could heal. His head lifted slowly, eyes burning. You let me fall in love with you while I was still hers. Tears slid down her cheeks. No, I didn't mean to. But you did, he said bitterly. You saw the ring on my hand. You saw the name on the sheet music. And you said nothing. She shook her head, sobbing now. I didn't plan it, Jamin. You were broken. You couldn't even remember your name. And when you smiled for the first time again, I didn't want to take that away. You should have. His voice cracked like glass. You should have told me the truth. Her voice fell to a whisper. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stopped needing me? He stared at her, the woman who had helped him heal and the woman who had lied to him. Finally, he turned back to the piano. You should go, Amara. Her lips trembled. Jamin, please. Go, he said softly, pressing a single key, the same one that began Whispers of Winter. If I play this now, I'll see her face again. Not yours. You don't deserve to hear it. The words cut through her like a blade. She turned away, tears spilling freely as she walked toward the door. But before leaving, she paused. You're right, she whispered. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But don't ever say, I didn't love you, Jamin. Because I did. I still do. The door closed behind her, and the echo lingered longer than any note. Days passed in silence. Jamin didn't touch the piano. He stayed inside, haunted by flashes of Yuna, her laughter, her scarf blowing in the wind, the promise he'd made before the crash. I'll write you a song that never ends. He had broken that promise. One afternoon, while cleaning, he found a small envelope tucked behind one of his music journals. The handwriting was hers. It read, If anything ever happens to me, don't stop playing. Don't stop loving the world. Even if I'm gone, keep writing. Because every note you play will still reach me. His hands shook as he read the words. Tears fell freely, soaking the paper. He turned toward the piano, sat down, and began to play. Not Whispers of Winter, but something new. Something that sounded like goodbye, and beginning all at once. The melody rose, pure and aching. And as he played, memories returned in pieces. Laughter in the snow, Yuna's face glowing under streetlights, the crash, the silence after. When the last note faded, he whispered to the empty room, I'll keep my promise. But deep down, another name echoed in his mind. Amara. Her laughter, her voice, her warmth. Maybe forgetting had once been mercy. But now, remembering was the only way forward. That evening, Jamin walked to the music therapy center at Seoul National. He waited outside until Amara came out, her eyes red from crying. When she saw him, she froze. I didn't think you'd come, she said quietly. He stepped closer, holding out the sheet music he had written that afternoon. It's a new song. She hesitated before taking it. What's it called? He smiled faintly. The Truth Between Notes. Her eyes lifted to his. What does it mean? It means, he said, voice soft, that between every song of love and loss, there's silence. And in that silence, I found you. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, she smiled. You're remembering everything now, aren't you? Yes, he whispered. And I still remember you too. She looked down, afraid to hope. So, what happens now? He reached out, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. Now, I learn how to live again. Not as the man I was, but as the one you helped me become. Amara's lips trembled. And me. You, he said, smiling softly, are the song I didn't know I was still capable of writing. As the evening snow began to fall again, they stood together in the quiet, two hearts mending in the fragile space between memory and love. The world didn't stop. The city lights still flickered. The winter wind still whispered through the streets. But for the first time since the accident, the music inside him was alive again. 3 months passed. Winter melted away slowly, leaving traces of white on the mountaintops and puddles along the narrow streets of Seoul. The air carried the scent of blooming cherry blossoms, soft, pink, and fragile, like forgiveness finally taking shape. For Kong Jaemin, each day had become an act of rediscovery. He practiced again, not to regain fame, but to feel. He played for the sunlight slipping through his window, for the wind that hummed against the curtains, and sometimes, for the memory of a girl who once believed music could heal the broken. That girl was Amara. Since their last meeting, she hadn't visited. They spoke only through short texts, polite, careful, and full of the words they didn't know how to say aloud. She was finishing her internship at the therapy center and preparing to return to Nigeria at the end of the semester. And yet, Jaemin couldn't shake the feeling that their story, wasn't finished. One morning, his manager came by with a letter. "It's from the Seoul Philharmonic," he said. "They're hosting a memorial concert this spring. They want you to perform again." Jaemin hesitated. "A memorial concert?" The man nodded. "In honor of Yuna. It's been 2 years since the accident." He looked down at his hands, the same hands that once played Whispers of Winter for her, the same hands that trembled when he touched Amara's face. "I'll do it," he said quietly. The night of the concert arrived. The hall was filled with hundreds of faces, but Jaemin's eyes searched only for one. The stage lights dimmed. The piano gleamed under the spotlight. He sat, took a deep breath, and placed his fingers on the keys. "This song," he said softly into the microphone, "was written for the one I lost and finished for the one who found me." The audience fell silent. He began to play. The melody started like snowfall, slow, delicate, familiar. Whispers of winter. But halfway through it changed. Warmer notes began to flow, tender and alive, echoing the rhythm of laughter and sunlight. It was no longer a song of grief. It was a song of rebirth. Whispers of spring. In the back row, Amara sat frozen, tears welling in her eyes. She hadn't planned to come, but when she heard he was performing, something inside her said she had to. As his fingers danced across the keys, she heard her own heart beating inside the music, the same melody he once hummed to her in his apartment, the same warmth that made her believe love could exist even in broken places. When the final note faded, the audience rose to their feet, applauding. But Jaemin wasn't looking at them. His gaze found her instantly, across the crowd. Amara's heart skipped. For a moment, everything, the lights, the people, the world, disappeared. Only them. After the concert, he stepped outside into the cool night air. The cherry blossoms swayed gently overhead, their petals falling like tiny pieces of time. Amara was waiting near the steps, her coat buttoned up to her chin, eyes glistening. "You played beautifully," she said softly. He smiled. "You came." "I couldn't stay away," she admitted. "That song, it was beautiful, Jaemin. It sounded like hope." He took a slow breath. "It's yours, you know. The second half." She blinked, surprised. "Mine?" "Yes." His voice was low, certain. "I wrote it because you reminded me what it means to live. You showed me that even when love dies, life doesn't have to." Amara swallowed hard. "I thought you'd never forgive me." "I didn't," he said. "Not at first. But forgiveness isn't something you give all at once. It's something that grows like spring. You just learn to let it happen." A tear slipped down her cheek. "And what about love?" He smiled faintly. "That too." They walked together down the quiet street, past lanterns swaying in the evening wind. The cherry blossoms fell around them, painting the world in pink and white. Amara stopped suddenly. "I'm leaving in 3 days," she said. "My program's ending." Jaemin turned to her. "And if I asked you to stay?" She hesitated, looking into his eyes, those familiar eyes that once looked at her with pain, then with warmth, then with both. "Then I'd ask why," she said softly. He took her hands gently, his fingers cold but steady. "Because I've written all my songs about loss," he said. "It's time I wrote one about love with you." Amara's lips trembled. "Are you sure? What if one day you forget again?" He smiled. "Then remind me. Every time I play, every time I hear your voice, remind me." Her tears fell freely then, but this time they were not of sorrow. The wind picked up, scattering petals around them. Somewhere in the distance, a street violinist began playing. Slow, sweet, full of life. Jamin reached up, brushing a petal from Amara's hair. "You once said music heals the deepest wounds," he whispered.
"I did," she said.
He smiled. "You were right." Their eyes met, and for the first time since the accident, Jamin felt peace. Not the empty kind that comes with forgetting, but the gentle kind that comes with remembering everything and still choosing love. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. "I'm not asking you to replace her," he whispered. "I'm asking you to walk beside me, to make new memories, new songs, new beginnings." Amara smiled through her tears. "Then let's start now." The street grew quiet. The wind calmed. The moon hung above them like a witness. Jamin took her hand, and together they walked beneath the glowing petals of spring. Two souls once broken, now learning to breathe again in harmony. Somewhere behind them, the faint echo of a piano floated through an open window, soft, hopeful, endless. And as they disappeared down the street, the final notes whispered through the night. Asterisk, Whispers of Spring, composed by Kong Jamin, inspired by Amara. Asterisk,